All right, it's 6 o'clock. With quorum being present, we'll call this meeting to order. Welcome to all of our guests. First, we will go into the consent agenda. Yeah, we're gonna get Toby officially indoctrinated here in just a little bit after this. In looking over the items on the consent agenda, are there any changes?
No.
Are there any questions? Then a motion would be in order to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Now, we're ready for...
Yeah, we'd like to swear in our new student representative. So Toby Brotherton would step forward and come to the magic wheel over here.
Will it give me powers?
It will give you powers. Special powers.
Oh yeah, you got so much. Oh yeah. Toby, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States, and the Constitution of the State of Missouri, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school director or as student representative for the Willow Spring School District to the best of your ability?
I do. Do I need to repeat all of
All the benefits that come with that position are now yours, which is coming to every school board meeting.
Yes.
And representing the student body and providing your perspective to our issues, and we certainly encourage you to do that. And a reminder to our board members to use our student representative. For instance, we have a topic on the agenda, the calendar, that probably would be good to have the student perspective on that.
Okay.
So those are good topics to bring out those perspectives. Thank you, Toby, for your willingness. Mr. Lovin will provide you with guidance whenever needed.
That's right. All right. Well, good to have you here, Toby. Thank you for being that representative.
Thank you.
And on to administrative reports. Who do we have up here? The high school.
Well, we've just been back a short time. We'll get back soon. We got curriculum meetings going on with Mr. Wagner. He's meeting with all the teachers in each department and looking at curriculum stuff, getting stuff ready to put on the website and things like that. So those have been good and productive. Basketball going on. Things since our last meeting. We had our student Christmas gifts. We had faculty feast, ugly Christmas sweater contest for staff and students. Mr. Spencer was the staff winner and Everett Smith was the student winner. And really that's about it. We're just getting back into things after the break. So not a whole lot going on at this point. Any questions? All right.
Looks like middle school is up next. Dr. Johnson.
All right, so our numbers are holding in there pretty steady again this month. We are down just a few in our overall attendance. We've had several, it seems like this week, bounce out, go to homeschool or virtual, but we've had a few more coming back in too. So it's kind of a wash right now as far as that goes. Events, finished up the first semester in good shape. Had a lot going on right there the last week, 2 weeks of school. The extravaganza, finished up the second quarter. And then we've kind of jumped back in this semester. Just a few days under our belt here, but you know, like Mr. Schmidt said, hopefully we'll get back going here and get in the swing of things. I'm not sure what all, did you talk to Miss Drake?
I emailed her and I was supposed to get with her yesterday,
I figured.
but
Okay, so I'll just go over this. Normally,
Okay.
some of this is what you go over, so I just didn't want to steal your thunder. Okay. So on the 20th, we had our character trait assembly on that last day. Culture and Climate Committee was really busy there the last like 2 weeks of school, putting stuff together, not only for the kids, but for the teachers. We had 5 days of Christmas for students, and the students got something basically every day, whether it was a pencil or a cookie, or one day they did movie and PJs. And then the food drive helped out a bunch of local families, had enough food left over to also help out the Christos house, so that was awesome. And then at the middle school, we did a turkey and ham giveaway, and the Culture and Climate kind of teamed up with our student leadership to make that possible, and I think they even challenged some of the board members to donate a ham or a turkey, and then all of those went to kids that really, really needed them and really appreciated it. So I think I'm probably missing some stuff, but like I said, we had lots of stuff going on there for the teachers, and it was a good week at the end of that first semester. So just looking forward to getting things going second semester. So I will also mention that we finished up our winter sports for the middle school. So right now we've got really nothing going on until springtime as far as athletics go. So any questions? All right.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
It's a good break.
All right, hi guys. I printed off my sheets. I like to have it in my hands when I'm up here, so I'm going to have to review this here real quick. As you can see, our enrollment's steady. We were down just a little bit for December. However, I think we had 4 new students enroll that may not made this list here just recently, but like Dr. Johnson mentioned, we're having some go to homeschool, and then just kind of, it's usually a wash if you'll move in. Our attendance again is kind of up. It's actually up a little bit, but daily attendance this time of year, it's kind of in elementary, all the kids and teachers catch about everything. I think this is our 10th or 12th day back, or since our last board meeting. So again, we ended up the first semester. We did try to wrap up our iReady testing, our second round of iReady testing. We had a lot of celebrations with that. I don't have the exact data, but we usually have rewards for the kids when they raise their iReady scores, and a lot of that was going on before the break. So that last week, there's a lot of activities and just some general craziness, I guess, so to speak, with it being almost the break. So we did have a neat thing there, a lot of volunteer readers, so you guys may have been a part of that. We also have some members of the community come in, reading to the kids. It's a good thing. We also have some other students come in and do that. And I can't remember if I shared this last board meeting, but we go down to preschool, grade levels, go down there and read to the preschool kids. So that's a big thing for us. And another celebration that we had, Rise and Shine, we recognized our character traits as well with our elementary students in assembly in the elementary. And we had to reschedule this, but today we had a visitor come in, is going to share, it's called the Ned Show. Never give up, encourage others to do your best. We had this guy here about 4 or 5 years ago, had a good response. It's encouraging, it's good for the kids to have this lesson. And as you can see there, we're as well going through the curriculum revision meetings. I think Chris has had to reschedule maybe twice now, some of those, so we're going to get there. So, any questions? All right, thanks.
Okay, Marlena is not able to make it tonight, but we'll have a report in February. And then normally we would have a report from Toby, but I'm guessing she probably hasn't had a
I
whole lot
did
of time
not,
to get
no.
anything.
I'm sorry.
But that's okay, we'll look forward to her first report in February.
All right.
Which would bring us to the audit, and our
We'll,
auditor is not here
He
yet.
got his way.
Did you hear from him?
I know he's on his way.
Oh, yeah,
He'll be here.
he'll be here. Do we want to skip that for now?
Yeah, until he gets here.
We need to,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Amanda, I know it's a little earlier than you might have planned on, but are you good to go ahead and give your presentation now?
Yeah, that'll be just fine.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you, Marty, thank you, board, for welcoming me here this evening. For anyone who may not know who I am, and anybody watching at home, I'm Amanda Mendez. My husband Ron and I own Howe County News, which is legal newspaper of record in Howe County. We distribute 2,300 papers every Wednesday through the Little Springs Post Office. That's paid circulation, so That's who I am, and I am here to talk to you about publishing the audit and some other Sunshine Law and media relations issues. So one thing that you may not know is when Ron and I bought the newspaper, I was not then what I would call a trained journalist. I was a writer who bought a newspaper, so it's been sort of a learning curve. I've been completing a lot of training, doing a lot of continuing education, and one thing that I've really been focusing on in the last year is the role of legal publications in newspapers. So I'm coming to you with information that I have recently learned. I just completed some training on it in October, and I just wanted to put it forth to you. I had mentioned it to Marty, mentioned it to Mandy, and they wanted you guys to hear about it. So for as long as I have owned the newspaper, when we published the audit, what we have in there, and I brought it so you can see, is just the financial disclosures. It's a little less than a quarter of a page, and I can pass this around. It's a little less than a quarter of a page, which has the financial disclosures. And there's a sentence at the bottom that reads, "The auditor's summary report and comments are an integral part of understanding this report." But then they don't appear with the financial statement. There is a sentence that directs the public to seek that information, to seek that summary in the central office. So in reviewing the statute, and I made copies for everybody. Just want to pass this around. In reviewing the statute, it has become clear to me why we're publishing that sentence that says seek it in the central office. It's because the statute directs us to do that. So I'm not here to make any kind of legal argument because I'm not an attorney and there's not an attorney in this room. But the argument that I'm here to make is that I think that there is a better way to be publishing this information that doesn't put the burden on the taxpayer or the member of the public to go and seek the information. And it's really because a lot of our other neighboring school districts, they do it this way. So I'm gonna pass this around. I brought tear sheets from Mountain View Birch Tree and from Junction Hill. Those are both school districts in the county, and from Eminence and Thornfield and Ozark County. And I trade papers with close to 30 other publications around the state of Missouri. And Willow Springs is the only one who's, when we're publishing this audit report, they're not publishing the auditor's summary comments. So my suggestion is that we take the work out of it for the public and for anyone who might be seeking this information, specifically because it does say in what we do publish that this information is integral to understanding those numbers. And my suggestion, my request, is that we begin to publish the summary with the report in the newspaper. And there may be some concerns and questions about the increased costs, of course, so I'm prepared to talk about that as well, if you do have those questions. So when you look at what you have traditionally published with me, it's a little bit less than a quarter page. And what you may not know is that, well, you may know that I am pretty politically conservative myself, so I don't love the idea of wasting taxpayer money, so when my legal publication rate is about 30% less than our commercial rate. So if you're a business who wants to advertise in the newspaper, you're gonna pay 30% more than what the law says you have to publish in the newspaper. So when you guys publish that, it's like 3 columns by 7 inches. It costs about $120, and that's kind of remained steady over the last 3 years. And I couldn't tell you exactly how much more it would cost, but kind of based on the other school districts in Howell County, it would increase between $100 and $200 more for the year. So I hope that's clear that this is not really about my livelihood. $100 or $200 more in a year is not my concern here. My concern is getting that information out in a better way, and in a way that's in accord with all the other school districts who are publishing their financial reports. And I think there's an argument to be made in accordance with the way the statutes want us to be publishing it, with the financial disclosures and the summary as well.
I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are we taking this just as information, or are we taking this up for discussion?
This is, we can discuss it,
We
yeah.
can discuss it, okay. I don't see any reason why we're not doing it. It doesn't seem like a large amount of money. It's something the public can and should know. It doesn't.
Right. Well, my question is, which of those schools that you offered here are producing what you would like to see?
So, all of them are, as a matter
Okay.
of fact. So,
Okay,
that
so-
we-
It's
Any
just
of
the
those.
notes, right?
yeah, it's the auditor's summary report, and it really would depend on your auditor for what he's giving you. So if you look at Thornfield in particular, that's why I can't give you an exact quote. He's really just got like 100 words in there, and if that's what your auditor has prepared as a summary, then that's what we should be putting out. Now, if you look at Mountain View Birch Tree, that's probably the most expensive one that I've been publishing. That is a pretty lengthy commentary, and that one did end up costing, I think, like $340 to publish, which is, it's a significant increase over 120, but my opinion as the news media, what we spend on making sure the public is informed is not money that is wasted.
Do you ever get any feedback from the public on it? I mean, do you think the public is looking at this and?
So I don't get feedback on the audits reports in particular, but I do frequently get feedback on the legal publication pages. So some of the more popular legal publication pages are like the unclaimed property rolls that's another thing that's required by law to be published in newspapers. And I get people looking for those, they want to know about the delinquent tax sale. You know, newspapers are the place that people are looking for this kind of information. Not everyone would necessarily think to go searching for it on the school website. Should it be there? Yeah, absolutely, it should be there. But in terms of presenting the information for the first time, the newspaper is where people look at it, and I know they do.
Do you guys ever get requests for it?
No. But they have access to it, the
It's
community
a-
does, anytime at no cost. I mean, they have
On
access
the
to the
website
audit.
or audit?
The
On the
full
website.
audit, we always keep extra binders in the office, and then, but me, doing this for 17 years, that's all the auditor has always told us to publish, Kenny did. That's all that needs to be published is what?
Legally has to. be
Legally,
published.
yes.
All right. Any other, did you have anything else?
I do. I have a couple of miscellaneous media relations and sort of sunshine law items that I just wanted to address while I have you here, if you don't mind me taking up just a little bit more of your time. I have not yet seen a copy of this audit report, and I did ask for it, and I discussed with Marty and Mandy that you all should see it first before I should see it. I can't see it. But my concern with that is that when it was initially submitted to me to be published, it was submitted on December 31st to be published in the January 8th edition. So we would have had it out to the public, something that says, go to the central office, seek this information as of January 8th or January 7th if you're getting it on the newsstand. But here we are on January 13th, and I'm, as a member of the media, not allowed to have that information until many days after I had requested. And it didn't really sit well with me, and I didn't love that. So I'm here, and it's, you know, I prepared also another one sheet that I just wanted to hand out because I've discussed with Marty several times about wanting to do this, about the way that I am being trained by the Missouri Press Association to interpret sunshine laws. Definitely differs a little bit from the way that Missouri State School Board Association is training you guys to interpret sunshine laws. Of course, there's always going to be a little bit of a tension between the members of the news media who want all transparency all the time, and then you guys are, you know, custodians of records. You are supposed to keep that information safe. You have FERPA to think about, you have sunshine laws to think about. So this is just a little one sheet that I prepared for our most recent public safety forum to kind of prepare the members of the public for what they can and what they cannot demand in terms of information from a political entity like the school board. Because the first one that everybody always wants to ask about is what's right up there at the top. It's personnel issues. So the only thing that I would make mention of where that pertains to the school board in particular is that nearly every month, when there's a closed session meeting and I receive an agenda, the closed session reason that is cited is almost always a single word, which is personnel. And there are 2 exceptions under the Sunshine Law that could be broadly understood to mean personnel. There's this one that's hiring, firing, disciplining, and promoting, which is exception number 3, or it's exception 13, which is personally identifiable employee records. So all that I would ask is for you to just cite specifically the exception that you're going into closed over. I'm not looking for a scoop, I'm not looking for any kind of information that I'm not allowed to have. I just want the number of the statute, because there is a difference, right? If you're going into closed over hiring, firing, promoting, or disciplining, that's different from going into personnel records. And so that is,
We can certainly do that. That's something that, yeah, we can make that adjustment. And I apologize for the miscommunication on the, we did not receive the audit until the 31st of December, and we were planning on going over the audit in November, then December, and it just kept getting pushed back and back, so, and we've talked, you can understand why we didn't have time to entertain the board with that audit before we were able to go to press.
sure. I guess where I'm feeling a little bit of attention is that when I was in the office on January 2nd, I don't think there was much of a reason for me not to have received it at that point, because it was already released to me to be published in the January 8th paper. Does that make sense? Even though we hadn't had.
Right, but the board had not had a chance to hear that audit.
And that was coming from
At that time,
our
yeah.
auditor. He wanted the board to approve it and look at it first before you or the community saw it, so.
Okay.
Because I was on the phone with him when you were in there, so.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
Normally, it would have been ready to put to press on the 8th, but because it was backed up so far, we needed time to let the board hear about it, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a matter of public record until we approve it or not. That's a question that would be good to.
Yeah, that'd be a good question to ask. Check with
If you
MSD.
have it in the statute right in front of you, it says immediately after the summary is prepared, it should be sent to a newspaper.
Uh-huh.
So,
Is that in this one, Linda? or is it in the-
no, it's not in that one, it's in the highlighted copy.
You don't have another one of the other ones, do you?
Right here.
Yeah, well, we can work with you on that, no doubt.
I appreciate it.
Anything else?
I mean, we can keep going with the agenda and then double back to anything that's there.
But surely Kenny, have you talked to him recently?
Today, right?
Yeah,
Oh, you talked to him today? Oh, so, yeah,
he knows.
okay. Well,
Well,
we'll
we can,
go on to the calendar, or
oh, let's do this one first.
the board retreat.
Yeah. So just as a board discussion item, we've had board retreats for the last few years at a different location to get the board off campus. We go for a full day, a lot of just open conversation. Those meetings are not live streamed, so it just goes right along with what we've been talking about. And there's been some discussion of maybe we do need to have that here in the boardroom so that we can live stream it and make those retreats open to the public. So I just need some board direction on what you would like me to arrange, whether we continue with the board retreat at an off-site location or move those to more of a board special session in the boardroom. And I'm perfectly happy to arrange either one of those meetings, but just a good discussion point for the board.
Anybody have any comments?
I think it's a much better look to have it here at the boardroom. Transparency is important to this board. We want to continue to foster that. It, you know, we've had them down at Bunker Hill the last 2 summers, and it's been super convenient for me because of my job demands down there, you know. But I have no issues coming up here. We've had them, you know, different locations, but I just think that right here in this boardroom we're conducting school business, and there's no reason that's my opinion, no reason not to have them right here.
Yep.
I concur.
Well, I think the consensus is
Okay.
we'll do a special session.
That's easier for me.
And
I'm good with that.
do you want to do it still yet on the same date that we had set?
Let me get back to you on that. There might be a better alternative than doing a Saturday. If we're gonna do a special session, we could do an evening or some other.
Do-
I'll come back with some alternatives for you later in the week.
Does anybody have any comments on that?
I would prefer an evening session personally.
Okay. I'll try to come up with some options for you.
What are we looking at evenings? I got pretty early bedtime.
Might we be done by 7:30 or?
Yeah.
I wouldn't wanna go over
We'll-
2 or 3 hours,
We'll make
you
it.
know, yeah, we'll get you out of here by 8.
6 to 9,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're looking at bed by evening.
Straight to bed.
9 o'clock is pretty much.
I'm ready.
the
Keep
deadline.
any of you up past your bedtimes, sure,
Yep, all right.
or mine.
All right,
All right, we're gonna have to do it whether
go on
we're
in
ready
the
or not, right?
calendar here.
Okay. All right, well, I'll get up for this one because that'll take some time. This is the schedule options for next year, and you know, this is, normally we go to this in February, but I'm bringing it to you in January so that we do have some time if there's some extra discussion that we want to take and come back and look at it in February, we can certainly do that. Or if we're ready to make a decision tonight, we can do that as well. But yeah, we'll just kind of go through this. So the scheduling process, 4-day weeks have been a hot topic for several years, especially in rural schools, especially post-COVID, teacher retention, financial ease. There's some pros to it and there's some negatives as well, and we'll look at both of those. But it's been a hot topic, and we've talked about it as a group multiple times, and I've always kind of been leaning toward the traditional schedule, but some things over the past 6 months to a year have kind of made me lean a little bit the other direction. Momentum has continued to build for 4-day and hybrid schedules across the state, and I've just heard too much positive to ignore what could be an advantage for Willow. My job is to provide the best for our students and our staff, and I would not be doing my job if I didn't give that opportunity for Willow as well. So I've sought input from the board, our admin team and staff, and the consensus was pretty overwhelming to pursue a hybrid schedule. So first, the traditional, when we talk traditional, that's more days in the classroom. It's shorter days, it's what we have right now, and it provides students with additional days of social emotional support. And I think that's a critical one, and that's probably the one that I've always leaned heaviest on. That's an extra day of meals for students. It's an extra day of a caring adult making contact with that student. So definitely that is one that we want to keep in consideration. You have in your folder on your iPad, you've got these, but that would be my proposal for our traditional 5-day. That's basically this year and the last few years, just turning that over and doing much the same thing. Next year, everything is pretty much what we've got right now. So the flex schedule is a hybrid. It has more flexibility than an official 4-day calendar. This is not a 4-day calendar in the sense that every week is a 4-day week. We do have Kabul, for instance, and Ava both have 4-day schedules. So every week is a 4-day week. Mountain Grove, we'll get to the other schools in the SCA, but several have adopted a flex type calendar where you keep 5-day weeks. There's one 5-day week a month. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. It's attractive to teachers, obviously. The climate and culture likes it, and there is some cost efficiency as well, and we'll get to all of that as we go. Our flex schedule would look like this. The last week of the month typically is your 5-day week, or the last week before a break. So the last day before Christmas break, for instance, would be a 5-day. And that may be the wrong calendar, so.
That looks like.
That's the same thing. I may have switched them. That's embarrassing.
No?
No, I just put the traditional on the flex, so just ignore that, public, but you hopefully have that in your folder. But there's a 5-day week at the end of every month. Every other week would be 4-day, for the most part. And that continues to get us out the second week of May. It keeps spring break, it keeps Christmas break, and all the things that we've gotten used to. This shows you kind of the growth of, and these are 4-day weeks, not necessarily schools that are on the flex calendar. These are just straight 4-day school weeks. You can see how that's grown. Right before COVID, it started to take off, and then it hit big. 174 districts, over 30% of districts in the state now have a 4-day calendar. In our area, the SCA is what we kind of compare ourselves to, and just because these schools are doing it is certainly not a reason for Willow Springs to do it. We want to do what's best for Willow, not what everyone else is doing, but when we're competing for teachers, it does play a factor. Ava is a 4-day, highly satisfied. Kabul, 4-day, very pro 4-day. In fact, their superintendent's comment was, I don't want you in Houston to do anything like this because that's going to hurt us when we're talking about recruiting teachers. Liberty is a hybrid, so is Mountain Grove, very similar to what I would propose for Willow. They're both very satisfied. Mountain Grove's got some new leadership, but he's been happy with it. Houston is in the similar position we're in. They're considering different options, whether it's a 4-day or a hybrid, but they're in a similar situation. Salem and Thayer are 5 days, and they are probably not going off of 5 days. Salem's the only high school in their county, and they have 4 rural schools, so they're in a bit of a different situation because to go to anything else, all the rural schools would have to do that as well, and they're really not competing with any of the other SCA for teachers because Salem's kind of off by themselves. Similar to Thayer, we're not really competing with Thayer for teachers either, and their board strongly supports a traditional calendar. So some key considerations when we're talking about the schedules, and this can all be discussed. Time is the first one. DESE requires 1,044 hours. Currently we have 161 days and 1089. Proposed calendar would go to 147 days and 1073 on the hours. So it's a 14-day drop in number of days, and then 16 hours. So school hours, currently Willow operates from 8 to 3:15. This is where we are able to do it. The proposed calendar would operate from 7:45 to 3:30. So it's a longer school day, which allows for more breaks in those 4-day weeks, and allows us the flexibility to create the calendar like we have, or like we're proposing. So the pros and cons of a flex calendar. The cons, like I mentioned earlier, and probably my biggest concern, social impact of not having having at-risk students in school for an extra 14 days. We have a lot of low-income students that would be missing out 14 days of meals and a caring adult. Academic impact, DESE study says there is no statistically significant effect on either academic achievement or building growth. Regardless of your calendar, there's nothing statistically showing that one is better than the other academically. Childcare on Mondays, clearly that's a concern for people. And I'm not exaggerating, literally every superintendent I've talked to that has gone to this schedule says, yeah, the community was very concerned about childcare. We tried to do some options and it just wasn't an issue. That's not to say it won't be an issue in Willow, but nobody had any concerns with childcare after they went to this calendar. Legislative resistance. Our legislators, especially in the St. Louis and Kansas City areas, are not fans of a 4-day week, and tried to put some monetary stipulations on it. So there's some concern there. Right now that would not affect us because it's in cities of, I can't remember the exact number, but it's 30,000 or more has to go to a vote of the community. We don't fall in that category, obviously. And the flex keeps us with a little wiggle room if we ever did need to go back to a traditional calendar. It would be easier to go to a flex than it would be all the way from a 4-day to a 5-day. The longer school day, 15 minutes added to the beginning and end of day, that's something to consider. So the pros, and again, this is probably the biggest pro, is teachers. Attract and retain the best teachers in our area. Overwhelming data shows the greatest indicator of student success in the classroom is the classroom teacher. So ultimately, the best impact on a student is to have the best teacher in the classroom. We don't compete with Thayer and Salem, but the rest of the SCA is on a 4-day or a hybrid schedule. So we are wanting to have the best of the best at Willow, and in order to do that, to be competitive, this would be a direction that I would recommend us going. Professional anecdotes, every superintendent I've spoken to, and again, that's not an exaggeration, it is literally everyone that I've spoken to, says their community, not the superintendent, the community would never go back to a traditional schedule. That is their choice now, and if the legislators mandated it, that they would have a really challenging time with their community. Financial leverage, we'll talk about that in a future slide. And then the hybrid calendar gives the district future flexibility if there is a need to pivot back to a traditional. It also allows for balance in the semesters and during high demand periods. So state testing, et cetera, if we need a 5-day week, that's where we would put it so that we can still have that extra day when it's needed. So the financial considerations, it's 14 less days of operation. That's where you're going to get your financial, and it's not a huge amount, but it's significant. And those are estimates, but by going with daily cost and trying to work through that. Fuel and maintenance per year, looking at about a $36,000 savings. Utilities, 24, meals, 45, and other daily expenses. So approximately 100 to 150,000 in savings with this calendar, and less need for growth of support staff, and that would have to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. Support staff is a consideration. Some schools that have gone to this reduce hours and reduce pay for support staff. That would not be my preference. I would want to keep those people at their same hours and their same pay. Mondays used for projects and preparation. Our maintenance and custodial definitely could use a day without students so that they can get in and do some projects that they can't do when we're conducting school. So time without interrupting the educational process is valuable to our support staff. The daily schedule considerations, block versus traditional scheduling, which is in some ways a whole other topic, but it could be kind of roped in with this as well. Each building decision is unique on what scheduling mode they want to operate with. Research all points to no significant impact on academics, much like a traditional and a 4-day calendar. A block and a traditional schedule does not show any academic preference one way or the other. But research does clearly show that staff and students prefer block scheduling. So with that in mind, we have block scheduling in high school and middle school right now, and I don't see any reason just because we would flip to a flex calendar that we would necessarily need to shift back to traditional scheduling. Buildings would need to account for possible missed time from absences during a 4-day week with scheduled advisory and tutoring time, and I can let the principals talk a little bit about that when we get to the end here. Middle school saw no attendance or no staffing increase when they went from traditional to block, and high school has been block since the 90s. It's a long, long time ago. Key considerations: Mondays. That would be, again, my proposal would be to have Mondays off instead of Fridays. Appointments and personal time, obviously that's when staff need to be taking days. Tutoring and makeup time for students. I know Mountain View does a lot of credit recovery and a lot of tutoring on Mondays where you can get kids caught up to where they need to be. And of course, we're open to other ideas and options to help students, working with Regina and maybe getting some food bags out to families on those Mondays. We already do that to some degree on Fridays for the weekend, but maybe just making that a little larger and covering that 3-day weekend. And that is the proposal. So we can talk, and again, the principals are here, and they'll be happy to entertain questions too about what this looks like for each of their buildings.
On the time, for the flex schedule, 7:30 to, was that it?
7:45 to 3:30.
3:30, yeah. Is that comparable to what the other schools are doing that are on this?
Yeah, depending on which school. But Mountain View and Mountain Grove are our two most comparable.
Okay. I've got grandkids in Mountain Grove.
Yeah.
And I don't remember them starting at 7:45.
Check on what time.
I'd have to check on what time.
But I'm not sure either. I've taken them to school, but I'm probably late, so. But I was just curious whether or not that was comparable to what other schools are doing.
Yeah, we discussed, those 30 minutes where to put that, if you put it all on the end. Either way, it's gonna mess up your transportation, so you can have kids
Really early in the morning.
early in the morning, or
Late at night.
getting home late at night, so.
And then team decided
Yeah,
15
then
minutes
team
on
decided
each.
15 minutes on
is the-
each.
is the
Yeah,
best way to go.
is the best way to go.
Is the 100 to 150?
Is the 100 to 150K in savings, is that for us, or is that kind of just what others have seen? Is that like?
That was
Yeah, that
our
would be
district's
record.
estimate, yes.
You got any feedback, you got any feedback from the other superintendents about their savings, about their savings?
Yes, then it would be
Yes,
comparable.
and it would be
to what I shared.
comparable to what I shared.
On the days we're off, though, transportation be provided to our kids going to West Plains. We still have to do all
That
that.
we would work on that. That's something the high
Do all those
school
kids ride bus, or do they drive themselves? How do they get there and do all
Yeah.
They
that?
don't go to school on those days. You talking career center? They
Yeah.
wouldn't go to, no, they wouldn't go. They wouldn't be in school on those. They wouldn't be in school on those days.
Why not?
Because it's non-school
I mean,
day. It's non-school day, so they go based on the homeschool calendar. So Summersville or whatever, and those schools, most of them don't go. Most of them don't go. I know there are some, I think Bakersfield might.
So the tech center already has about half of their schools right now on a 4-day.
So they've
And so
already
already
adjusted
adjusted hours for those schools, and they would do the same for us, so that you're getting it in during your school day on that Monday. On that Monday, so you wouldn't miss Monday, on that Monday.
West Plains is still on. West Plains is still on a 5-day.
Yes, but Lincoln, adding that time on the day would allow our kids to be there a little bit longer than what they are now. Because right now they're coming back early because we got them back to get on the bus. They would have a little bit longer. So they would have a little bit longer time while they're at the
I mean, I see the pros and cons. I mean, you talk about credit recovery, handing out these meals, that still has to consider a parent that's working, and bring their kids to school that day. And we always have practices, and wouldn't about a third of the school still be there that day anyway, or certain amount of teacher staff, and this and that, I mean, so would the savings that you're talking really be there?
Well, we're not,
Still,
staff was not in the cost savings, that's not in there. That's not.
I got a lot of questions. I'm just-
Yeah, you're fine.
You know, then you're taking 14 days away from cafeteria workers. They're getting paid.
No, again, we would still pay our support staff even now. Their hours and pay would not change. They would still be expected to come in on those days and work.
But it would be more.
Some
deep cleaning and
some deep cleaning and some projects when the kids aren't here.
So the lines are all still out.
Not all.
Not all of them. Classroom lights are.
I realize there is some savings, but I'm not seeing, for me, enough savings to justify the kids
Well,
that
the
need to be
savings
here
is
not being
one
here.
aspect of it. That is, to me, that's not the primary aspect.
Right.
The primary aspect of it is getting the best teachers.
I get that, you know, I'm advocating for the kids, which I should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a lot of kids that need to be here every day. You know, we hand out 80 to 100 backpacks a week to kids. We got 560 kids. I don't, tell me off this, that are correct students, that get free meals. You know, it's 457, sorry. Another 132 reduced students. I worry about all that.
Well, like I told you, I mean, that's my primary concern is those social, what we're doing for those students. So we would try to make sure we can do the best for them, but at the end of the day, the best thing for that kid is to have the best teacher.
I get that. Me personally, I prefer that.
I would ask the question too, and I just want to be clear that, so in your data and everything from NC and all the stuff that we're getting, so if we were to keep, let's say we do this flex schedule, and students have a class on Wednesday, and then in a block scenario, they don't come back to that classroom again until a Tuesday, correct? On some weeks.
If they've got it on a Wednesday, they'd be there on.
Or sorry, Thursday and then all the way back, sorry, Thursday and then back to Tuesday.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. So is the gap in their kind of keeping those subjects and topics fresh with them, there's not a significant or any data that shows that there's loss?
No.
Okay.
There is no data to support that. And I would think that would be.
Yeah, logically,
a bit
that's
of
what
an
your
issue.
mind wants to
And I
think.
know, Nick might talk a little bit about, and John for that matter, the, part of what we're doing in both the middle school and high school is that intervention time with the, what are we calling it, advisory time, and the fact that, we're trying to plug that gap anyway with, regardless of whether we do, whatever schedule option we end up with, we want to make sure that if the student isn't there for whatever reason, that we're making sure that they get that content mastered the next day as soon as they can.
Sure.
My issue is, if we're gonna do this, I think the block schedule is absolutely wrong for a 4-day week. I see no reason to keep the block schedule. I think, first of all, financially, you had that slide where you said something about the middle school, so there was no increase in staff.
Correct.
Well, that's because they were on the block,
No.
then they went to regular, and then they went back to block, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we didn't change any, when we made the change from one way to the other, we didn't make any changes then. So I think it's pretty well known that you're gonna do with less staff, and I think I don't know how we came up with this, I think you even said maybe 4 to 5 staff members per building in middle school and high school. So if you've got 10 staff members that attrition cuts out at 50,000, that's $500,000 in savings right there. And I think in the times we're in right now, that should be a very, very important thing that we should be looking at if that's what we're going to do. I think now is the time to get off the block schedule if we make this change. And kind of on what Jeff said, I think if you look at our math scores are the lowest. We are always complaining about our math scores. And I don't think you'll find a math teacher that will say they would rather have their kids in class every day. And if it happens now, as he said, if you got a kid that say he misses class on Thursday or Friday in the block on a 4-day week, if he misses class on Thursday or Friday, he misses a whole week of class because he didn't make the Thursday class, which means Tuesday was when he was in class. So it's a whole week before that kid's back in class. Plus the 100 or so kids that we have in spring sports that are missing class on top of that. So that's a big, and I think we've talked about, well, they're an advisor, advisee, and we're going to help there. Well, I contend they're better off in the classroom than they are an advisor, advisee. I think you could even take time away from the advisor, advisee and put it back in the classroom and give your teachers time in class to go over with the kids that are struggling, and maybe give your other kids some enrichment time instead of using that time for that.
That is in the classroom, the advisor, advisee.
I mean in the actual class.
It is, that's what I'm saying, that It's not what it used to be.
It's with that teacher.
It changes
During their
it
class?
changes daily. You go to that class to get that instruction.
Okay, but I mean, they're not, that's not their math class,
Yes.
though, right? This is the
Yes.
same students?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the, even if you went to this and you got off the block schedule, you could go to 7 periods and leaving your 45 minutes in there, you could go 7-period day, and you'd have 55 minutes per class. You actually could even go to an 8-period day and still have 46 minutes in a class. So I just think, I mean, financially, to me, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer at the times we're in to save money to get off the block schedule.
I'm curious on the DESI report. I mean, basically the 5 years that I've been on the board, I've heard nothing but that a 5-day week is what's best for kids. From you, from pretty well everybody there. There's always been this concern there. So, I mean, it showed January of 24 that came out. I'm just curious, is that one report? I mean, how much information do we have?
It's a big, robust report from DESI, and there's other reports from other states that basically say the same thing, that there is just no academic difference in the two schedules. And I do still think that there is, you guys all make valid, like, you could still make the point that the 5-day week is best for kids. What I've been kind of won over to is that getting the best teacher is the best thing for kids. So therein is that's kind of the balance.
I think
there.
that is the biggest pro for this, is the attractiveness for teachers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the
Retention, good
we
teachers.
can't, we gotta, like Adam said, we gotta consider the child there as well, and what they're getting. The other issue that I wanna just touch on there, you may have talked to individual board members, but this is the first time that this has come to the board, as a board there. So I don't know that you have consensus from the board in that aspect, that we didn't direct or try to, I mean, this is coming from administration to the board. This is the first time the board has received this in this fashion, where we're sitting here at this table.
Let me just clarify what, I went to the president of the board to make sure that this could even be broached, because I didn't want to turn into a fair where the board is strongly against it and there was no point in pursuing it. So I just wanted to make, when I made that point, that's kind of the steps I took to make sure that the board would even hear it. And then we went to admin and staff.
Well, I just want to be clear on that.
Yeah.
Board consensus is a
No,
little.
I'm not saying it was board
strong
consensus. Did I say
word.
consensus?
I think that's what's on the slide.
No, I didn't,
That's how I read it, or took it.
Well,
I certainly didn't
From
want,
staff.
right there.
Yeah.
I've sought input from the board, admin
Okay.
team and staff. So
My
I did
apologies.
seek input from you. I
Right.
did not say consensus.
My apologies on that. The second thing is community input, which I believe is one of our CSIP goals, is it right?
Yes.
Is that right there? Have we received any community input, reached out, heard back from surveys?
That would be what, if the board would like to take that next step, that's what we would do in this month, the January and February meeting, but we have not done that yet.
I would think that as a board member, I would definitely need to hear community feedback before I could make any kind of decision towards it. And I think, that's,
You can already see some talk about it, and the talk I'm seeing about it's not for it.
well, I mean, I don't know if it's gonna be for it or against it, you know what I mean? But it's hard to say without knowing.
Without asking
Right.
in the right way, yeah.
I mean, I think everyone in the room's had a teacher that was good and a teacher that was not so good, and you remember those. Throughout your life, a good teacher makes a really good impact on your life for a long time. And, I don't know what's best for kids or what's best for the educational process. That's really your guys' job to figure that out. But I feel in order for us to be competitive moving forward, we're in a national teacher shortage. Teachers can pretty much, if they have experience and they're a good teacher, they can go about anywhere they want. And, you know, if you're selling Ford trucks and you can go right across the street and sell a Chevy for less days, that's where they're gonna go. And I do think for the competitive aspect of teacher retention, it's important. I do have concerns, just me personally, on the amount of time there could be, you know, like especially on these weeks where we have a PD day on a Friday and then no school on Monday. So a kid has, you know, algebra on the 9th on a Friday, they don't have that again until the next Wednesday. That's concerning to me. Were any of those districts, do you know of any districts that are on this hybrid schedule that are also on block scheduling?
No.
Okay. That would be a concern for me. I do think it's the wave of the future for as far as teacher retention and probably the direction we need to go, you know, because there's, what, 3 districts within 20-minute drive of here that's in that, you know, in this type of scheduling. That, you know, the block would be something I'd be concerned about, you know, just as far as minutes in the classroom. And I don't know how important that is, but that's a concern for me.
You guys want to touch on?
I think there would be arguments both ways depending on the class itself. You know, I think the important thing, when we switched at the middle school from the 7-hour day back to the block schedule, like we were concerned about that, especially with 5th and 6th graders, just not seeing that teacher every single day. And so we had even looked at, we ended up not doing it after I kind of talked with the teachers, met with them, kind of figured out what was going to work. I think the key to this is being flexible and being willing to make changes. So what I started to say there was we looked at splitting a block so that we could still have kids alternating back and forth so that they would see those teachers every day. So that might be something that we need to look into once we get into this. If this is something that we really want to do, I think is being flexible and being willing to make a change there as we see, you know, as needed. I think that's only smart to do that.
Your minutes in the classroom are going to be the same if you're on a block. You have more minutes in a day, which allows teachers to do a lot of different things. They can vary different activities, and be able to present a lot of different things. This might be a good time to talk to your student representative and kind of get some feedback there.
Okay.
I was just thinking that. What does
Okay.
Toby think about this?
I know it's not like a matter of what like the students will like, it's what's best for them. I personally have always liked the block scheduling. It's just less stressful on me and less stressful, I think, for mostly every kid that you'll probably ask. And if you have like an algebra class on like a Thursday and you don't see that teacher until Tuesday, I will guarantee you they will give you homework and you will do it over the weekend, and I know that for a fact. So it's not like you're not going to be using that skill all weekend, because if you're like me, I'll forget it 2 seconds after you teach it to me, honestly. But if they're using that over the weekend, then like I said, they will most likely give you homework from it. I don't think it's much of, well, this kid isn't gonna have that much time. And the advisory scheduling too. I mean, you're gonna have that teacher, if you're struggling in that class, you're gonna have that teacher probably all week, if that teacher wants you in the class. So.
Or if you choose to be in.
Or if you choose to be in it, yeah. If you know that you need help, ask that teacher and go to that teacher.
I still would be concerned just based on the fact that we'd be the only ones doing it. And there's gotta be a reason for that. And I don't know what it is. And I don't know if there's any data for that. But that would just be concerning to me. Also, like in the spring semester, there's not only a lot of athletics that leaves in the afternoon, there's all kinds of trips and all kinds of, and so you're gonna go from a kid, well, this week, instead of them having it twice, they had it once or 0 times, because we had a Tuesday girls softball game and a Thursday girls softball game. And that's gonna happen for a bunch of kids. Not only athletes, but also FFA trips and FBLA trips, and
That's
we're
going to
go
happen
to
regardless.
True.
It will increase.
But they'll have the class the next day.
Next
They
day,
will,
back to
but
class.
instead of missing one class, they're going to miss 2 or 3 classes.
correct, but they'll have it the next day.
Right.
Where they'll go to their advisory.
I'm not saying I'm for you, I just don't know, it's concerning.
I'm just saying that I think our administrators have put scaffolding in there to make sure that we don't let kids fall through. I mean, regardless of what schedule we go to, we want to make sure that our kids are taken care of and successful. So, we can continue to have this discussion, but I do feel like our administration has put the right supports in there to make sure kids get the help that they need and see that teacher that they need to see as soon as possible.
How many kids have been on a regular school day? We say that they prefer the block, but they haven't been on the regular school day. So how do they know?
I did a
We do have
dissertation
some
on that topic.
One's coming from the rural
I can
schools.
say that.
One's coming from the rural schools have.
I would maybe, I think that there's maybe more to absorb, and I think Matt's idea of, because the community is a major part of what I think needs to go into the conversation as well, because that's these parents' kids, and figuring some stuff out on their end is, at least we would not be doing a good job if we didn't at least hear what they had to say.
They put us here.
They elect us to represent.
Right, I would suggest that.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
You look at that, getting that input.
Yeah.
And then, this could be certainly a topic for our
Sounds like a
special
special
session. Because it is gonna take a lot of discussion.
Yes, for sure.
There's a lot of pros and cons both ways. One thing that we haven't talked about, have you guys had much chance to look at what might be done on those Mondays if we went to the flex schedule, as far as enrichment possibilities or other things?
There could be some enrichment opportunities. Tutoring would be one, credit recovery, attendance makeup, enrichment things could be possible as well. We put a little thought into it, but
Yeah,
not
right.
over the top, because we don't know if
Well, you
we're
might,
headed there yet, but.
yeah, think about that, what anything might look like, or just ideas.
Career Ladder also kind of leans towards
Right.
that too, because now those teachers can capture those Career Ladder hours on a Monday and bring kids in
And
and
then
tutor.
addressing what Adam's talking about, the kids that are on free and reduced
Sure.
lunches, and input from the other schools about if anybody's doing anything to address those concerns.
Could we see what it would look like from a staffing aspect with block and without block? Is that realistic, something we could look at?
Yeah, we can,
How many staff members?
we can get an estimate anyway. I mean,
Close.
Yeah, because you're also, it gets a little gray because you're talking about subjects and how many teachers we need for that subject. But yeah, we can get an estimate.
You can get us an idea of
Sure.
what we're dealing with.
Sure.
Am I allowed to say anything or ask a question? I know.
At the end.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll ask for comments here at the end, so, but we would appreciate it, yeah. Anything else on this topic for now? Then,
I will get that survey out and do this, get this data for you, and we'll set up a special session.
all right, we'll table any action
Yeah.
on the calendar until then. Kenny?
I don't know that I want.
I was trying to leave that for after.
We were starting to get worried. We were starting to get worried about you.
Were you?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a long ways from me.
Yeah. There's no snow on the roads.
No, there's not. That's it.
I got one. Go, you want one? Oh, yeah. Once in a while. It's like math.
I don't.
Oh, it's probably the most exciting part of your night, evening.
Same thing we got here.
Yeah. Just in print copy. But coach, have that.
you guys got in front of you there is your financial statements and our auditor's report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2024. I'm going to go through some of this information with you. Get questions along the way, you're welcome to stop me at any point in time. If there's something you don't understand or something you'd like me to try to better explain, then you're welcome to stop me. Page 4. Page 4 is the first of the auditor's report. It's broken down into sections. You'll notice it says at the top, this is our report on your financial statements. We put the financial statements together for you, but they're still your financial statements and you're responsible for them. We're responsible for auditing them and providing an opinion on that, and this is our opinion on it. Second paragraph on that page. Since our opinion, based on our audit and the report of other auditors, the financial statements referred to present fairly in all material respects to respective modified cash basis, financial positions, governmental activities in each major fund of Willow Springs School District. In short, what we're telling you there is that we feel that the financial statements in here are materially correct. You notice we did reference other auditors. There's one part of this that's audited by other auditors, and that's the retirement footnote. It's audited by the public school retirement system auditors. They put that information together, send it to us, and we put it into your financial statements. Page 4. It's the second of the auditor's report. It's called a report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance. First part of the report is on internal control over financial reporting. The important part of that is the last sentence of the last paragraph.
What page are you on?
4.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, sir. Last sentence of the last paragraph. The important part of that. We identified a deficiency in internal control we consider to be a material weakness, and it's described in the accompanying schedule of finding and question cost of 2024-1. We'll get to that in just a moment if you'll flip one page further. Told you it's a two-part report. The second part is on compliance. Top paragraph up there, the last sentence of the top paragraph says the results of our test disclose no instances of non-compliance required to be reported under government auditing standards. So we've got one internal control deficiency. If you've ever seen a Willow Springs School District audit before, you've seen this. You'll flip one page further. Down at the bottom of the page there, finding 24-2024-1, internal control of financial reporting. The accounting function lacks segregation of duties and responsibilities in the payroll expenditure receipts and reporting cycles. The bookkeeper's responsibilities include recording and reporting financial data, which should be segregated. Basically, what I'm telling you there is you don't have enough people in your accounting function to make it work perfectly. You have the same person doing payroll that also inputs and adds people to the payroll system. You have the same person doing the bank reconciliation that also records the accounting entries. And ideally, you guys have 2 people in your accounting department. It would require a minimum of 3 before you could ever get rid of that finding. So, I do Ava School District, which is probably a little larger than you. They have 2 people, they still have the same finding. So, all 7 school districts that I do have at least that finding in. Not to try to minimize it. What you need to do though, is whenever, the way to make things better is whenever they bring financial information to your board meeting, you look at it, and if you got questions, ask questions. You guys are the next layer of control. Got it? So whenever you see the summary of the bills or anything, if you got questions, ask them questions. I bet they'll give you answers. Page 10. Page 10 starts your financial statements. Statement of net positions. It's similar to a balance sheet if you're in business. This is your assets. Pool cash up there. Now remember, we're talking at June 30th, 2024. Pool cash is your amount in your checking, $3,310,000. Those non-pooled investments of $192,000. That's actually some principal financial stock that you own. So they donated that to the school district several years back, and it's still sitting there. It's like some shares of stock. Down in the lower section, you got in the net position section, you got $16,000 restricted for student scholarships. You got $14,000 STEM grant money you hadn't spent. You've got $1,139,000 of education stabilization ESSER 3 money you hadn't spent at the end of the year. Those are all restricted balances. Your unrestricted is $2,334,000. Next page. Next page is statement of activities. It's kind of similar to a profit and loss statement. Top section up there, cash disbursements is the amount of money that you spent in each function. Instruction, you spent $9,382,000 last year. Student services, $821,000. Building admin, $769,000. General admin, $1,088,000. Operating your facilities, $2,027,000. Transportation, $1,013,000. Paid off $265,000 of principal on lease purchases, paid $45,000 of interest. In total, you spent $17,497,000 last year. Next column to the right there, charges for services. That's income that was generated. The $598,000 there beside instruction is student activity money of $347,000 and $252,000 of tuition from other district students that you're educating, $252,000. Local receipts down there by food service, $122,000. That's the food service money that you collected for lunch and breakfast, local money you collected here. The next two columns are federal and state grant money that you got that was spent in those functions. The far column on the right tells you the difference between the money that each function generated and the money it spent. You'll notice all those have brackets around them, which means none of them supported themselves. Middle section of your statement there, the general receipts, that's the money that you take in that's not tied to anything. Use it to fill in all the holes. Property taxes, $2,788,000. Sales tax, $1,839,000. Basic formula state money, $5,749,000. Classroom trust fund, $537,000. Fourth number from the bottom, that would be your profit or loss for the year. Decrease in net position, that means your expenses exceeded your revenues last year by $1,245,000. Started out the year with $4,744,000, ended the year with $3,502,000. Page 12. Page 12 basically tells you how much that's in each fund. Your general fund is $2,137,000. Your teacher's fund had $9,000. And your capital projects fund had $1,356,000 at the end of the year. Of that $1,356,000, $1,130,000 of that's restricted COVID money. Page 13. 13 breaks your revenues and expenses down by fund. Top section's the revenue section, middle section is the expense section. 1, 2, 3, fifth number from the bottom is the profit or loss for each fund. The general fund was profitable by $808,000. Teachers fund was negative by $1,469,000, and the capital projects fund was negative by $584,000. Comes the bottom numbers comes back to what you have in that fund at the end of the year. $2,137,000 in the general fund, $9,000 in your teachers, and $1,355,000 in your capital projects. Any questions on those? I told you this was going to be exciting, didn't I? Page 17. I'm going to skip several pages, or do you want me to? Page 17 tells you a little bit about the money you owe. Your financial statements are what's called modified cash basis, which means in modified cash basis, the only thing you see in there is fund balance and your cash and investments. You don't see that the money that you owe in those financial statements. It is back here in the notes, but it's not in the financial statements. Capital lease there, you get an outstanding lease purchase at June 30th on your HVAC that you get in HVAC upgrades a few years ago. You got $1,570,000 outstanding on it. You're paying 2.5% interest. That's scheduled there. Down there in the middle of the page tells you how much you're going to pay in principal and interest over the term of that lease. That lease expires in 2032. You had an LED lighting lease, but you paid it all off during that year. It was $90,000. You paid it all off. 18. Top of the page, legal bond debt margin. That's your bonding capacity. If you decided to issue bonds, or you went to the voters and they approved bonds, that's the maximum amount of bonding. You don't have any outstanding. That $14,984,000 is your bonding capacity of the district.
Can you back up one page? Why does it say school buses there?
That doesn't. That should say HVAC.
That's what I thought. Okay. All right.
I thought you wouldn't even see that. See right here, I've already written that. All right. Where were we at? Page 19, I think. Is that 19? Mine goes from 18 to 20, but I think they fixed yours. Yours, well, that was these hard copies. So, yeah, mine goes from 18 to 20, but it's exactly right. Okay, top of that page right there, assessed valuation up there at the top. That's the assessed valuation of all the property owners' property, not the school district property. It's called your tax base. Residential, 44,598,000, up 2,800,000 last year. Agricultural, 2,957,000, was up $116,000. Commercial, 17,224,000, was up $825,000. Personal, 35,115,000, was up $388,000. Total assessed valuation, 9,895,000, up $4,175,000. 4.36% increase in assessed valuation. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I've seen some districts with 10% this year, but I've also seen some with 2%. So 4% growth is pretty good. That commercial is really pretty good, really good right there.
Is that a typo on your, apparently,
What?
99 million? On the assessed value?
No, that's the total assessed value. That's the total assessed valuation, 99 million. That's all the businesses and all the houses. That's everything in this district.
Gotcha.
$99,895,000.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Property tax levy rate, $2.75, just below that. That's the minimum tax levy rate that you can have in the state of Missouri. Not many school districts still have that. Ava does. You guys do. Gainesville does.
There's a lot in this area.
Is it? They're all over this area, basically. Retirement systems, two of them that you guys belong to. One's called the public school retirement system. That's the one that the teachers and administrators belong to. They put in 14.5% of their pay into that retirement system, and the district matches it. The people that are not teachers and administrators that belong to the public education employees retirement system, they put in 6.86% of their pay into it, and the district matches that also. If you'll flip to page 20, bottom of 22 there. It tells you how much money that you spent on retirement last year. $1,099,000 was the district's matching contribution in public school, and $185,000 was the district's matching contribution in PEERS, Public Education Employees Retirement System. Page 23. Near the top, or at the top, pension liabilities. Now, if you had cash, if you had accrual basis financial statements, this is a debt that would show up in your financial statement. So it's called the your unfunded portion of the pension liability. PSRS, $11,111,000. And PEERS, $1,133,000. Total of $12,244,000. If everybody quit contributing to the retirement systems, and the retirement systems didn't make any money going forward, that's the amount of money that you would still be liable for everybody's pensions that's being paid and going forward. But as we know, that hopefully everything's going to continue to work. Actually, public school retirement system and PEERS are some really sound retirement systems. This stuff became important back years and years ago when big cities like Detroit and places like that went bankrupt because they had pension plans that they'd never funded, and they went into bankruptcy because of it. So now that information, you get to present that information in your financial statements. Risk management down there, you belong to Missouri United Insurance Council. They provide you with property, liability, and workman's comp insurance. Your premium last year, or for 2024, was $202,000, up $48,000. Pretty significant increase. Insurance is increasing everywhere. My farm policy went up 25% too. Page 26. 26, 27, and 28 are some budget comparisons. I'm not going to go over them much. What I'll tell you is you'll notice up there at the top of those that says unaudited. The budget columns are unaudited. We don't audit the budget. The actual column is audited numbers. The first one there on 26 is your budget to actual for your general fund comparison. One on 27 is for your teacher's fund, and the one on 28 is for your capital projects fund. Page 30. Tells you where your money came from. You'll notice that's broken down in some sections called local, county, state, and federal. Property taxes up there in the local, $2,788,000 was up $149,000. Sales tax, $1,838,000 up $106,000. Earnings on investments, $10,635 was down $162,000. Total local, $5,317,000 up $250,000. 33% of your income was local sources. Down in the state section down there, basic formula, $5,807,000 was down $76,000. Transportation, $548,000 was up $129,000. That early childhood special education at $237,000, that was new. It probably wasn't new, but you didn't have any in the previous year, so it was new compared to the previous year. And down there near the bottom of the state section, that school safety grant of $150,000 was something new also. State money, $7,739,000, up $547,000. 47% of your income was state sources. Down in the federal section, that ARP ESSER 3, that's that COVID money, $1,159,000 was down $21,000. Your school lunch money at $392,000 was down $75,000. The reason for that is because in the prior year everybody qualified for free and reduced, and you get better reimbursement on a free and reduced than you do on a full price. So now you just get reimbursed for free, the number of free and reduced that qualify. Not everybody. Everybody doesn't qualify now. Title I money down there, $372,000 was down $234,000. Federal money, $2,631,000, down $316,000. Total revenues, $16,252,000, up $413,000, or 2.6%. Revenues up 2.6. The next page tells you what you're spending money. I'm looking at the total column only over there. Salaries, $9,972,000, up $542,000. Employee benefits, $2,570,000, up $244,000. Purchase services, $793,000, down $122,000. Supplies, $2,515,000, up $273,000. Capital outlay, $1,336,000, up $331,000.
What's capital outlay?
Equipment, buses, buildings,
It was up how much?
$331,000. A lot of that capital outlay was spending of some of that there ESSER money, is what it is, a lot of that. Almost, I'd say 95% of that was ESSER money that was being spent. Other objects, that's the debt, the principal interest you paid last year, $311,000 was down $86,000. Total expenses, $17,498,000, up $1,182,000, 7.25%.
Where are you at now?
31.
31.
31. What was that, $1 million what?
$1,182,000. 7.25%. Page 32 tells you what it costs to transport your students. Total allowable cost, $898,000, down $23,000 from the previous year. The ones, your salaries were up $20,000, your employee benefits were down $6,000, your supplies were down $28,000, and your depreciation was down $12,000. So that tells you where the supplies would, of course, have the fuel cost in it. So you purchased 2 buses, gave $250,000 for the 2 buses combined. Missouri State Transportation Aid, the money that they reimbursed you was $548,000. Your average cost per student transported last year was $1,269. That's not on yours. It's $1,269 for every student you transport. Your average cost per mile driven is $2.64 a mile. Page 34 Let's go to page 35. Middle, upper portion of the page there, you see attendance hours, total attendance hours, 1,147,000 was down 49,000 from the previous year. September membership at 1150 was down 45. Free and reduced at 645 was down 40. Your ADA, your average daily attendance last year was 1,098. That doesn't show up on yours, but I've computed that based on the information that was had available. 1,098 was your average daily attendance last year. Page 37, a little about transportation. Eligible ADT, that's the average number of students that you transport on a daily basis that you get reimbursed from the state. On 638.5 there, that's the eligible ones. The ineligible is 69. 69 are those that live your town kids, basically, because they live less than a mile from school. You don't get reimbursed for transporting less than a mile from school. Eligible mile, your total bus miles, 340,000 last year. Eligible miles, 259,000. Ineligible, 82,000. Eligible miles are to and from school and to and from VOTEC. Ineligible miles are summer school routes, activity trips, maintenance miles, those kind of things. 39. 39 is the last of the auditor's report. Anytime you spend more than $750,000 in federal money, then you have to have what's called a single audit. A single audit is we have to audit compliance of your major federal programs. And this is the report that we issue as a result of that. It says, second paragraph on page 39. In our opinion, except for the non-compliance described in the basis of qualified opinion section of our report, Willow Springs complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements referred to above that could have a direct material effect on the Education Stabilization Fund program. So the program that we audited as the major program last night this past year was that ESSER 3 money. And we found there's going to be two compliance issues in there, and there's going to be 2 internal control issues. You can't have a compliance issue unless you have an internal control issue, because you don't have non-compliance unless something went wrong that caused you to have that, right? Okay, so page 40. Top paragraph up there, it says, as described in the accompanying schedule, finding and question costs, Willow Springs School District did not comply with the requirements in the Education Stabilization Fund. The reference is finding 2004-2, that's equipment and real property management, and 2004-3, wage rate requirements. You're going to see when we go to those, I'll tell you a little more about that. 41. Report on internal control. Second paragraph, last sentence. We identified certain deficiencies in internal control or compliance that we consider to be material weaknesses. And the last sentence of the next paragraph, it says we consider the deficiencies in finding and question costs 2024-4 and 2025-24-5 as material weaknesses. Now, if you'll flip back to page 7, we'll go over those in a little detail for you. Up close to the top, finding 2024-2, compliance with major federal programs. The compliance requirement is equipment and real property management. Basically, you didn't have it. You're supposed to have an inventory system that records all your assets, and then it has to have certain components, such as what was it funded by, and the report's supposed to be updated and maintained, and they couldn't produce it. We couldn't produce an updated inventory report. It's a requirement of that ESSER 3 funding is to have one of those and to maintain it. So the cause is the district did not complete the physical inventory and update the inventory report. The effect is federal funded assets are inaccurately captured on the inventory records and not discovered or corrected. Our recommendation is complete a physical inventory and get it up to date.
And we will.
There you go. You have to identify them and keep it up to date. So basically, anytime you spend federal money on something, if you ever get rid of that, then you have to go back to the federal government and ask them if they want the money out of it or they want that asset back. or how they want to dispose of it. So you buy a bus with federal money. You decide you want to get rid of it. You have to notify the federal government because they used their money to buy it. And tell them, and they can either say, we want the bus, or we want you to give us the money you get out of it, or you can keep the money. That's one of the reasons you have to have the inventory report. Keeps track of the federal assets. It should keep track of all the assets. In reality, you know, you need it for not only your federal assets, but all of them. So what happens if a tornado comes through and you don't have an inventory of all your assets? How do you prove what you had for your insurance? Okay. Page 8. (2024-5) wage rate requirements compliance. Anytime you do a construction project and use federal funds for it, you have to verify and document that your contractor paid prevailing wage, at least prevailing wage to his employees. So if you build a building or you do any kind of construction project and use federal money, you have to require that contractor to send you certified payroll reports. Then you're supposed to check and make sure he paid prevailing wage to those employees. Basically, we didn't have the certified payroll reports. The contractor may have very well paid them prevailing wage, we just didn't have the certified payroll reports to prove it.
And if they weren't paid prevailing wage?
You're liable.
What do you do at that point? Go back and rectify it?
Well, you would be liable for the difference between what he paid them and and the prevailing wage was.
So you gotta make it up basically?
Right. You could be. I mean, I'm not saying you would, but you could be. In the construction business, most of these big companies nowadays are paying prevailing wage or better, but so I think there's little chance that you'll have any liability there, but it's just, the compliance requirement is you're supposed to document, you're supposed to check and document that they have done that. Questions? If you want to know how much federal money you spent, if you'll flip back there to $43. $43 is the schedule of your federal money you spent last year, $3,425,000. That's actually on page 44. It's a 2-page report. Here's what I'll tell you guys. You know, when this ESSER money came out, Ava had the compliance, the same wage rate compliance finding 2 years ago. Seymour never had it. Seymour never had it, but Seymour's always had building projects and a lot of building going on with federal money. So it wasn't their first time they'd been through it. Most of my school districts that had these kind of findings right here, it's the first time they'd ever seen that. First time they'd ever done anything like that. They hadn't used federal money to buy equipment and to build buildings and stuff like that. So, not to say that you're not supposed to go find out what the compliance requirements are. I'm just telling you that I've seen it happen other places. It's not something you can't fix and fix pretty easy.
You said an unrestricted balance back there, I forgot what page that was, 2 million something? Oh, it's gonna be, what page that was?
10.
What, you know what percentage that is?
13.38.
13.38?
13.38.
So page 10?
Yep. To get to that, you take that unrestricted number, you add up your expenditures in your general fund and your teacher's fund. And then you divide your restricted by that. So if you'll look at page 13 and 10 combined, you can figure it and get.
Okay, you take what figure now, say it again, which figure am I taking?
If you look at page 13.
Okay, I'm there.
Expenditures, general fund and teacher's fund, $6,746,891. See that?
6746891.
And then that one right beside it, 9104. Add those two together.
Okay.
And then divide your restricted by that number, and that gets you your percentage.
Where's our restricted at?
It's on page 10.
Got 3,500,000 and.
No, the one right above it.
2, okay.
Okay, so it was the 6746891 plus 910435, correct?
Correct.
And you said divide that by the 2 million?
No. Divide the 2 million by that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did that come out?
Yeah, I've got it.
Toby, are you doing that?
No, he lost.
I didn't check the math, I just saw it on the ASBR report, so I assumed it did it correct.
Yeah.
Does that ebb and flow throughout the year,
Oh, yeah.
the unrestricted balance does?
Well, you know, right now, you're unrestricted.
I mean, this percentage we're talking about, does it ebb and flow? throughout
Well, I mean, you know, if you were taking in a lot more money than you were spending, of course it would go up. But if you're spending a lot more money than you're taking in, it could be continually inching down all the time.
Right.
Last year you spent what did I say you spent?
1.245? All right.
Like, look at
You went down 1.245. You went down 1,245,000 last year. Well, look at how much did your unrestricted change last year from the previous year?
I don't know where to find that.
But you're probably, we'll get a check from the county soon that will bump our, I mean, that's gonna make it go up. Right now, it's probably the lowest it'll be all year.
Your unrestricted the prior year was 3,106,400. The prior year. This year it's 2,333,636.
What was that percentage?
I don't have that for you.
You wrote that down.
I do have those other numbers.
Thank you.
19%, something like that.
So, I'm looking at, we're pretty out of sorts on our teachers fund and our capital projects there.
Well, the teacher's fund always operates at a deficit, or normally always, unless you report, the capital projects fund would, it's got a big bunch of restricted money in there. It's got a bunch of that COVID money, had $1.6 million. The previous year it had you had $1.6 million COVID of restricted money the previous year. This year you got $1,138,000, which means you take the difference between those two numbers, and that's how much you reduce your restricted balance by. That's money that you can't use for anything but what it's restricted for.
Why does that teachers fund typically operate in the negative?
It depends on what revenue you get. With a lot of your revenues, you got the option of recording them in the general fund or the teacher's fund. And I mean, some of them you have to record in the teacher's fund. You know, career ladder has to be recorded in the teacher's fund. Teacher baseline has to be recorded in the teacher's fund. And you know, you have a lot of discretion on where you record that. Basically, what happens if the teacher's fund operates at a deficit, you just transfer money from the general fund over there to cover that deficit.
But in this case, we didn't have as much money to transfer over because we don't have the ESSER money like we had in the past. Is that accurate?
Well, most of your ESSER money is in your capital projects fund.
Right.
What you got left. So, if you look at page 12. See that bottom section down there? $2,107,000 is unrestricted it's unrestricted and unassigned in your general fund. In the capital projects fund, you've got $1,356,000, but $1,130,000 of that's restricted COVID money. You only got $226,000 in the capital projects fund that's not restricted. So you get $226,000 that you could go out there and do whatever you want to with, as long as it's building and equipment. You got that. That's how much balance you have in the capital projects fund that you can do whatever you want to with. The restricted balance, you have to spend it on whatever qualifies for ESSER 3.
My figures aren't coming out right.
What are you looking at?
Yeah, you said those two numbers added, right?
Yep.
And I divide that into that. And I'm getting 14%.
Well,
That's close, Coach.
It's close. I'm only off like 1.1%.
You never choose B or C.
Yeah, I want to add. You said those two.
well, it should, that's what I was with it, but I didn't do the math on it. Take these three right here.
I didn't choose them back.
Well, that would be this number over here.
Okay. 17?
And, first here, take the unrestricted. I don't think the capital projects fund, figured it, didn't I? Take this number and this number, that would be it.
This one?
Yep.
And this one?
Yep. Okay, now you get that number captured?
So this is historical, right? I mean, this is not audited last year.
Divide that with this number.
Basically.
This is FY '24.
24, right? So ended what,
17.
June?
Divided by
June.
17.
So I think if they're trying to get it where you're at today, where are you at today?
Well, that's a whole different.
That's a whole different conversation. So you kind of can't look at where you're at, you gotta look at where you're currently at.
So it takes the capital, I would, back in the capital project, it takes all three of the money.
So that's this one right?
Yeah, takes that one right there.
End of that.
Yeah, but you got all these divided by your unrestricted balance. And this number here is restricted capital project, so that's the unrestricted.
So I guess my question, what I'm trying to figure out here
Okay.
is basically we're showing a loss for this year, is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay, and so we had to dip into our unrestricted or our savings essentially to cover that?
Well, you drove down your restricted reserve and you drove down your unrestricted reserve both.
Okay, so it looks like, it's the capital projects and the teachers fund, which you said operate there. So my question is as we're out of COVID money, there's no ESSER money left over, we don't have anything to cushion this situation any longer. Is that accurate?
Well, that's,
When you audited us in June of.
you won't have any COVID money there. It's all
Right,
gone.
yeah, so there's gonna be an impact on.
Well, your revenues, what happens if we take COVID money out of this one here? The COVID money that you spent was, like $1.6 million. You took in, $1,160,000. You had some left over from the previous year, so that's why you're unrestricted. You look at your unrestricted balance, the decrease. Take one, here you go. You're good with the ad. Take the, yeah, adding machine. Take that.
850.
Let's try that. You reduced the restricted balance of COVID money by $475,000. So you eat up $475,000 restricted money last year. Unrestricted money, take this. Subtract that from
The 233.
yeah. That's how much unrestricted money that you used up.
770,000. Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to allude to is if we repeat this same process.
You're gonna be hurting pretty fast.
Right. We
You're
need
gonna be hurting pretty
to
fast.
make some corrections.
If you go down $1.2 million, you got
2-3.
you got 2-3. If you go down $1.2 million, you'll be done in 2 years.
Right.
No.
Yeah. No, we've got.
That's unrestricted money. That's unrestricted. No, that's the unrestricted money.
Right, but
You've got a bunch of restricted there that you had to spend down anyway in the capital projects fund.
Well, we're gonna see the impact of that in 2025's audit.
Next year's
Next
audit,
year.
yeah.
We're making adjustments now,
Sure.
but we're gonna see,
Yeah, you're probably still gonna see.
we're gonna
some-
see another impact of this
Yeah.
in 2025's audit.
Further question?
I got a question.
Yes, sir. I like questions.
Hey, you audit, 4-day week schools?
I don't know, Ava, I support, isn't Ava a 4-day week?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yes.
Have you seen any kind of impact financially?
I don't know, there's been, how could you tell with the COVID money and everything that's come in the past 2 or 3 years? How could you tell?
Yeah.
Good. Let's see, I audit Ava, Willow Springs, Seymour, Ludi, Thornfield, Avila, and Bakersfield.
Bakersfield's 4 days.
Bakersfield 4 days too, yep.
And Seymour got what, 8 or 10 million COVID money?
All that school's built off of it.
And they did get,
10 million, they got 10 million COVID money.
and they're the same size or smaller than us.
That COVID money was based on your free and reduced eligible count.
And they got to count the Amish.
And they get to count all those Amish kids that go to those Amish private schools, all of those qualify for free and reduced, so Seymour gets that in their free and reduced count, which is the driver on that estimate. It's a windfall for them, huge windfall. I'm off the hot seat?
I think I'm done.
All right. I think you're done.
Hey guys, enjoy the visit. I do like the question. See y'all.
All right, thanks. All right, comments from our guests.
So if we go back to the 4-day school, and I hear the argument about the teachers, considering that a perk, if you will, I would assume, because less driving for them, 4 days. How many have left here for the 4-day schools? 4-day schools?
Yeah.
How many have left here to go to those?
Couldn't tell you exactly, you know, a lot of teachers have a variety of reasons for leaving and whether 4-day was a part of that, you know. There would be some, but I don't know an exact number.
And that would be my next question. What exit interviews and what cultural surveys have you done to see what motivates the teachers to stay in the district versus, I mean, I understand, like, it could be, I could set my pajamas an extra day, but you can only do so much with the staff. And I speak from personal experience. We closed on Mondays, Pizza Americana. We have 2 people we bring in just to bring hours in. There's only so much you can do every Monday when you're there not taking customer orders and things like that. So I think you'll, very unpopular probably opinion, you'll have to assess. I know you say you want to keep the staff, you want to keep their pay, but if you're talking about a budget issue or a budget deficit, you're going to have to consider how much work you actually have for those people and whether they're productive after so many days off. And 14 days doesn't sound like a lot, but I guess it will add up over time. And then another thought process, she made the comment about, I know my teacher's gonna drop me homework, whether I've been there Tuesday or whether I've not been there Thursday or another thing. I think in the times, we have to consider homework policies in 4 days, and maybe you could consider a hybrid block schedule. Because if there are certain curriculums that's very important that a kid get in there on a daily basis, such as math or reading or writing or something that makes them a productive member of a workforce, maybe those should be everyday classes. And maybe the classes that are PE or other things should be every other day classes. So maybe you could consider something completely different than other school systems and retain that academic aspect, but also retain the flexibility of some of the block. I don't know if that's even feasible, but it's something that you could consider. If you skip PE and it's in the afternoon and you don't go because you're going on a basketball trip or whatever, what's the big deal, right? But if you miss math, maybe it is a big deal from an education perspective. So that maybe that's just something in your evaluation. And then maybe just from a presentation to the community, this is more of a thought process, is I already seen it on social media today, I already seen the churn, the noise, everybody's gonna have an opinion, and everyone's got one, because we all have mouths and personalities. But maybe you need to figure out how you present this to the community and before you start soliciting input, because it's gonna become very emotional very quickly based on, I've got daycare. Well, what am I gonna do on that day? And I can't do that. So I guess there's a lot, I think, that needs to maybe go into the presentation before. That's more of an input than a question, but those are some things I think that maybe you wanna maybe consider before you roll it out for general feedback, potentially. Because I think you're gonna have to balance some things just based on what I heard of the budget, what are the things you got, and maybe you have to figure out some other things before you're ready to go completely to a 4-day discussion, or a hybrid discussion. That's just my input.
Yeah.
Can I respond to part of that?
Yeah.
I just want to tell you a personal anecdote, and it's just a one situation there. My wife is from Willow Springs. We graduated from here, taught here 9 years. She's been a teacher for 11 years. She no longer does that, but we've talked about, not that we're interested in leaving our jobs or professions, but we've discussed coming back here, or she's discussed coming back here to work, and she may kill me for bringing her name up.
I've never said her name.
Right, yeah, so, but part of that conversation was that she would probably go to Mountain View or Kabul over coming to Willow because of the schedule. And that's just from an employee perspective, a teacher perspective. So I don't know if it's so much that tenured teachers are gonna just, I'm up and out of here going to another school, but I think it's getting that teacher to want to come here, to want to make that application and show up here. So that's just a personal anecdote from me. It doesn't mean that it's universal, but.
Yeah, and I think I'd just be curious, because as you present it, sorry, what is that? What's the motivation in that 4-day, right? Is it the less gas? Is it, I can spend more time doing?
It's employees.
It's just a
They're
personal
employees,
thing,
you know,
right?
Employees
Right.
want to work less.
Yeah, and I get it, they wanna work less, and they want
Well, I
the
mean,
same pay,
they'd rather
but
get it all done in 4 days
Yeah.
than stretch it out to 5, basically. Yeah.
it may
Yeah,
also
that's
not
better.
prepare the
It's
kids
not
very
less
well
work.
for real world jobs, because you don't get to work real world jobs very often in 4 days a week, so. We already have a lot of kids that work for us, a lot of your high schoolers, and some of them aren't prepared for 5 days a week work week either when they come out. If you go there, they're really not gonna be prepared, so this is other things to consider too, so. And I get it, I definitely get it, so.
You could open on a Monday.
Maybe we open on a Monday with high schoolers only.
Right.
That's joyous.
Thank you, Larry. Any other comments?
I do have 1 or 2 or 10 comments about the 4-day schedule. I know, Marty, you've been in education a long time. Coach Colley, you have. Mac, you have. Some of you guys back there. 18 or 20 years ago, the push was really big for year-round school. Right? You all remember this? Because the other countries were gaining on, their kids were coming out of school smarter than ours, because that's what they did, was go to school longer. It never matured in the United States, but that was the push. Everybody was trying to figure out how we were going to do that. Then this gray area popped up, and I don't remember the reasoning, how instead of counting school days, we count school hours. And that's how our school calendar was made, was we're going to hours now. So the school calendar got shortened a few days at that point. Like I said, I don't remember how that came about, but if we go to a shorter school day, or a longer school day, and more, that's just putting our kids in the seats shorter. And you guys, Matt, you said earlier, everything you've heard is more days in the seats, the better the kids are gonna learn. I've talked to teachers that they all say, that the ones that I've talked to said you can't make up in those 7 to 10 minutes in a class what you're gonna lose by 1 educational day. Marty, you said earlier, if we lengthen the school day by 15 minutes front, 15 minutes back, you said that lends itself for us to have more and longer breaks. Longer breaks don't tend to give us any more educational time. Your first responsibility as a board member is to educate these students. The only pros that I've heard for the 4-day school week is for teacher retention. That's the main,
And I understand it's a balancing act, teacher retention and education, but education is the bigger factor in that. If you lengthen those school days, are the teachers going to teach, in the class, say the class period gets longer, they're going to teach an extra 20% of the lesson in that extra day to make up for that 1 out of 5 days that they're missing? I don't think so. They're still going to teach the same lesson, but they're going to teach less lessons because the kids are going to be in school less days per year. What was it, 13 or 14, whatever this calendar showed? Longer class periods. Are the kids going to pay attention for an extra 5 or 10 or 15 minutes per class? Probably not. I think I always remember they said after about 40 or 45 minutes, you were losing the kids anyhow.
7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah. So, and the whole block scheduling, you guys hit on this. If you go to a 4-day week, block scheduling can't work. It just, if you miss a day, like somebody said, then you're a whole week before the kid gets back in here. And that happens quite often. The push was always for, it was a saying 90% of the kids here 90% of the times. Are you there? I don't know.
Not quite.
Not quite.
We're very close.
Okay, all right. But you have these kids, you've still got probably the students that need the most help are the ones that are missing the most amount of time. So if they miss a day a week, now they're getting these classes 1 day a week is all they're gonna be getting them. Teacher contracts are based on days. They're not gonna be here as many days. You said you wanna keep the same amount of pay for the teachers. I get that. Teachers are not well paid, but if they're working less days, they're working less days. But, that's just, but we're gonna pay them the same amount of money for less days work. And I know Marie said that when you pulled the faculty, they all were for this. Of course, I could go to my tire shop, or you could go to your pizza shop, and ask my employees, hey, do you guys want to get the same amount of money? We'll be here 4 days next week instead of 5. I know what they're gonna say. So I can't, polling the teachers is not the best thing to do. The kids in the bad situations, you have kids that come from bad homes. If you've got a 4-day school week, that's 3 days with no outside contact those kids are gonna have. I'm sure there's lots of situations that the school counselors, the administrators, they step in and there's things that happen that they have to report. And that's just 1 more day for these kids, plus the food for the 3 days. You send 80 or 100 backpacks out. Is there gonna be 3 days worth of food in those now instead of 2? I don't know. It's just all questions to consider. As far as the money savings, I think that's there's not gonna be a great money saving. Sure, you've got estimated $100,000 to $150,000. The best I remember in the last 3 or 4 years, you went from 27% reserves. Last year you're at 19%, and this year at 13% reserves. You're not gonna make that up at $100,000 or $150,000. There's a spending problem in this school that's gotta be addressed. You don't slap a Band-Aid on a 4-day week and say this is how we're gonna address a money issue, because it's not. That's putting a Band-Aid on to cover up a problem that's greater, much greater than that. Which was probably the overspending of COVID money. And it's gonna have, you're gonna have to figure that out. Is it we've got too many teachers? Do we have too many teachers that have way too low of a caseload that needs to be addressed, and put those, some reduction. That may, and if you go to a traditional schedule instead of a block schedule, I believe there could be some teacher reductions happen there. Nobody wants to talk about people losing their jobs. I get that. But when you start talking about dropping reserves as fast as you are, and next year you're going to see that number even smaller, I believe the goal of the superintendent is 20% reserves. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're failing at that desperately. The last thing I want to say about this is, whenever I seen this on the agenda, that, okay, it's you tried to bring this in backdoor, a 4-day week. There was no community input. It was put on there for an item for action. The first time it was brought for board discussion, it was put as an item for action. If some of these board members would not have spoke up about it, Marty was ready to push for a 4-day week, it would have been voted on, and tomorrow, guess what? Amanda would come out in the paper and say, hey, y'all need to get ready for a 4-day week, because that's what the board voted on last night, and it got approved with no community input. Transparency is something that's been pushed by the board and the community for years. This was could have been backdoor politics, no transparency at all. That's really unacceptable from this board. I'm glad that you guys decided to table this and get some community input, but that should have been done before it was put up there for items for action. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tony. All right. Yes, Amanda.
I just have a question. Since community input is such a huge theme of what we've discussed tonight, what can I do to help? How can we collaborate with the outreach and the platform that I have into the community, which is of course not necessarily the student body, I mean, you guys have that covered, but I'm your conduit, I can be, into the community at large. What can I do to help?
Well, your forums have been, when you have the public safety forums, those forums have been beneficial for people to have an opportunity to ask their questions. So maybe you should consider like a forum, in some place, and Amanda be your moderator or something with the, you know, a panel of some of the board, the panel of the students and some parents. And you should have opposing sides.
I will say that this is the first time that we've had many people from the community here, ever.
We go to press at 3 p.m. on Mondays, so it's, I slept 2 hours last night. I'm like going into an 18-hour work
We
week
could definitely
right now.
talk.
Like it's hard for me to be here on Mondays, but
6 o'clock meeting kind of stuff for people at work.
We can, yeah, I'll call you tomorrow and we can talk about some ideas and options. Sure.
I don't think that the board's gonna sort out the communications between you two, that's what you two can do, but I fully support the communications between you two and you being involved in this, and the fact that you came here and it helped educate us on the Sunshine Law, I think there's value in that as us as a board, you know, to not only be educated, but to just stay on track on what we need to do, and anytime the community shows up, even Tony, I just think it's good feedback, and it's what we need to hear as a board to continue to stay on track, to right the ship if we've veered off course or if something needs to be adjusted. I thought this was a good meeting, and I think a lot of positive come from it.
And I won't talk on all of your points, but I do want to make sure that the 4-day has nothing, like the finances need attention, and that's you know, absolutely out there. The 4-day, the financial component of that is not meant to be a Band-Aid at all for the budget. That's a separate topic, and I don't want that to come across that this was a way to fix the budget, because it's not, clearly, and I know that. But that was one component of, and I just wanted to make sure I was presenting all aspects
I'll
of it.
clear that up with you tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, well, Amanda, thank you for offering.
yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate that, and we'll use that. All right, any other? Then we'll move on to items for action. The only thing we have to do is approve the FY24 audit as presented. A motion would be in order to do so.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the audit as presented. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And we need to go into executive session, so a motion would be in order to go into executive session.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded.
Aye.